Aloha and welcome back to the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where everything is going second take this week. I've had camera failure. We're hoping for better internet. The Packers are hoping Malik Willis can throw the ball down the field, and Joe is wondering if he's going to have to talk to himself this episode. Joe, let's cross our fingers and let's see how this one's going to go. But hopefully better than Week 1 did for the Packers, and I mean, obviously Jordan Love is the elephant in the room, but it's always good to see that 52 of 53 others practice today. So it's looking and they have not shut the door. But the question for us is, have we shut the door on Love playing this week?
I I know people keep bringing up the Aaron Rodgers one where Aaron Rodgers tweaked it and they were talking about how he was going to be out for extended period of time, but he was back that next week. I think it was friend of shows Don and Matt from Hey We Like Your Pod were talking about how Aaron Jones had the same issue where and so I think I'm really set. I know I predicted it on last episode. I'm really set that it's going to be a 2 week thing. I think right now they're just playing the mind games of, well, are we going to start this guy or are we going to start that guy or whatever? But who knows? We could all be wrong too. And, they throw a brace on it and say, all right, go out and play.
Yeah, I do think, and it's hard to tell because LaFleur is obviously going to play it straight down the middle, and the team is doing the right thing where he's not even there. Like, he's not riding the bike, he's not, walking around kind of thing. He being Love. So,
right.
like,
I think
yeah.
they said Malik said that he was there. He just wasn't during the reporter portion.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think Malik was saying how he's getting Love is getting a lot of mental reps, and they're prepping. The way he worded it was interesting because, of course, LaFleur is playing it straight down the middle. Like, we're giving, he's doing a lot of good work. We're going to see where he's at the end of the week, blah, blah, blah. Malik's was kind of more like, I'm going to be ready just in case. Like, and, it's hard to take that at more than face value, but it is interesting that, it wasn't the scripted, we hope he comes back quickly, but I'm going to do everything I can for the team until then kind of thing. It is interesting that Malik, even the guy who's prepping to be the starter, if Love misses a couple to a few weeks as we're expecting, it is interesting that Willis and to a lesser extent Clifford are both kind of like, oh yeah, we're prepping, but we're kind of keeping the seat warm kind of thing. So it is interesting to see how it's going to go. But I'm with you. I'm expecting that Willis is going to start. And personally, I'm the really nerdy, the game plan weirdo that I am is kind of intrigued by Willis starting because I do want to see what LaFleur does to kind of pull the stops out to get a win against an unfamiliar opponent. So that side of it is intriguing.
It is, and it's also interesting because in Clements we trust. Obviously he's done wonders with Rodgers. He's done so far. It seems like he's done wonders with Love, and I know it's only been a short amount of time, but there must have been something there that they liked in Willis that they thought that they could fix on him. And it'll be interesting to see if obviously he's not going to be a completely new quarterback, but it'll be interesting to see if he's taken the next step. If they've worked with him and said, all right, this is what you got to do. And because it has been 3 weeks since the trade, that he has had a little bit of time to get in there, and they have been getting a little bit of work with him. Obviously, that's ramped up now that Jordan's not taking any snaps during practice. But you go back to what Willis was in the draft, and he was a dual threat quarterback that had a big arm, but he had his issues, and they were multiple because obviously he went to a small school compared to most draft picks, and there's a reason why a lot of the talking heads had him as a first round, but he fell all the way to the third round. There's a reason for that too. I was trying to think, was that the
Pickett year.
But was that also Drew Lock?
No, I think Locke was the year. I think Locke is older than Love. Hold on. Let's let's look this up.
Because for some
Yes, he's a
reason,
2019 Lucky or Locke is a 2019 draft
okay,
pick. Yeah,
and Willis was a
21.
21. Okay,
21 is the rough quarterback year.
yeah. Well, that's why I was thinking Locke was in there for some reason. Because for some reason it kept just sticking in my mind, Locke and Willis, and that was the year that only one quarterback was taken in the first round.
Yeah,
But
and
now it's Pickett. So no, I was gonna say that
or
you know
2022. Sorry, but yeah, it was Pickett and then I don't think there was a quarterback taken between Pickett and Willis.
that's what I was wanting to say too.
Yeah, I can't. I always get the whole like it's 2 years ago, but you count the year kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I always throw that one off. So yeah, but yeah, it was that was such a weird quarterback class. Okay, you can probably throw out weird and put terrible, but we're hoping that some work with Clements and LaFleur is getting Willis a little bit more to the guy that you hope to see than the guy that he's been so far in his career. But yeah, we'll see. But other than that, Edge Cooper was a full participant, and then limited were Ballantyne, Kenny Clark, Josh Jacobs, and Marshawn Lloyd. I get the feeling that Lloyd is getting closer because they did release Lamichael Pirine from the practice squad and didn't replace him with another running back. I know Merriweather is still there, and shoot, the guy
Martin,
they
Chris Martin,
yes
is
or
that his name?
Chris something. I'm totally blanking, but the one they signed right before the game last week. So they, I get the feeling that Jacobs he's being listed because you have to list him, and then I do think Marshawn is getting close to his debut, and I get the feeling that he will play this week, even if just in like a couple snaps here and there, kind of thing. And you
He
know,
was in pads. That's promising.
yeah, and expect the. I think today was the
Chris
Shells day.
Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks.
Brooks.
So we'll keep it. Our Twitter account will our individuals, and then obviously we'll retweet it with the podcast Twitter account. But we'll be monitoring the practice situation. But we're recording this on Wednesday, so obviously the official practice report has not come out this week by the time that we're recording this. But everything is honestly looking as positive as it can be, and that's including the Jordan Love side of it. But that's enough for the Packers. Getting into the Colts, who are also coming off of a week one loss. The Packers lost a conference game. The Colts lost a division game, so that's an even bigger loss for them. But Anthony Richardson, that's the hot item for the Colts offense, and you know he is the like stereotypical project quarterback, big, tall, athletic, cannon arm. He had I don't know if you saw it, Joe, but it was an absolutely ridiculous play where he like dodged two guys, broke a tackle in the pocket, and then just zinged the ball like 60 yards in the air effortlessly. But then, at the same time, he only completed 47% of his passes. So still a work in progress. This is a guy who I think he only played like 5 games last year, but as much as you said last week you didn't care for the fact that we were playing the Eagles so early in the season, I do think we're catching the Colts at a good time because of where Richardson is in terms of his development.
I'd have much rather played the Colts week one than the
Yeah.
Eagles. So that right there. But yeah, Richardson, and then the other side of Richardson is he can move. He's a dual threat. They do have some pieces over there. It's interesting that of the 212 yards that Richardson threw, Alec Pierce had 125 of them. So that is an interesting aspect. They do have the running back room. Jonathan Taylor, he really didn't do much, but they also went against a tough Texans
Yeah.
team. So
And kind of touching on what you were talking about a little earlier on Richardson's mobility, I still don't think this is gonna. People were disappointed in the Packers' pass rush against the Eagles. We covered that in the recap episode. The field sucked. Kenny Clark has been blasting it every day since the game, and you kind of saw it, and it. They definitely went in with a contain the pocket, don't let Hurts run for 150 yards like he did 2 years ago. And then the field conditions, they're like, yeah, we're toning this thing down from a 8 to a 5. We're playing smart, and you just hold him in the pocket. So you hope that in the friendly confines of Lambeau that the Packers are gonna not go for broke on it, but send Richard. Like we said, Richardson is young. He hasn't been around the block a whole lot of times. So you don't bum rush him, because if you miss a gap, you're gonna get burned. But at the same time, you got to show him some different looks, because you might be able to catch him in a bad spot, kind of thing, right?
Right. And now, but if you go by what Nagler said, they have the same field type that's down in Sao Paulo, so we could have the same problems all over again this week.
If Lambeau's end zones look like a shot put range, we have a whole lot of issues with Lambeau. So I know I saw that comment, and I was like, I'm not buying that. Like we talked about on Sundays, when we recorded on Sunday. There's a different, like, yes, they might stitch the turf together. It might be the same kind of grass and yada yada yada, but
it's conditioned
it's
different.
conditioned different. It's for guys just running and sliding. Like you said, I'm pretty sure the blades of grass are longer on a soccer field than they are on an American football field. Because, like you said, sliding, all the trick kicks and stuff like that, and then the celebrations after it. Whereas football, you've got 300-pound guys who have to mash into each other, and you don't want that ground to give and stuff. And it very obvious, like I said, it looked like a fairway after I'm done with it. So,
but I like I said, I would have rather played this game week 1, even
yeah,
if it was in Brazil. But you have to figure that Edge Cooper, after the performance he kind of had, is going to get a little bit more snap rotation. The pass rush is going to be a lot better. I know a lot of people are blasting Rashawn Gary. Why are we paying him all this money when he didn't do anything? And Lucas Van Ness is just a one-trick pony. And I even saw somebody get smart-assed that uh, they
he
they
hasn't learned
one of
he hasn't learned anything other than a bull rush. What is he
well,
doing?
not just that one, but somebody was being smart-assed about Kenny Clark when they listed him as being as a limited participant. And he must be just on doing his passing downs because he doesn't even show up on rushing downs, or on run protect downs. So it's going to
Everyone's
be a
got an
complete
opinion. Yeah.
right, and it's going to be a completely different game. I even seen people blasting Quay, and we both thought Quay did a heck of a job,
and
but it was
and what's nice is a lot of people have come back and said, like, no, like, this might have been one of Quay's best games. And a lot of the plays where there were a few where he definitely should have been better, but most of the plays where everyone's like, what's he doing? It's like, no, there's a reason for what happened here, and it sucks that it ended up being like this, but there's a reason, kind of thing. So,
and even though I hate PFF, didn't they give him a positive grade?
yeah. So, and I don't mind PFF grades for non-linemen. I just have never cared for their lineman grades, because, especially offensive linemen, but even defensive linemen, they don't. We won't go down the rabbit hole, but they don't know as much about the game as they think they do, and I'll just leave it at that.
And I will be full transparency. After they gave Rodgers a negative grade after
That
one of his
2015
games,
Monday night game, yeah.
yeah, after they gave him a negative grade, I was like, "Fuck you guys." I don't know what you guys are looking at, but especially when I think they did the same thing to Jordan Love last year. I think they gave him a negative grade for a game, and it was like he had positive stats.
I think what made it even worse is it was the whole, it's what they were trying to be like, outside the box where it was one of his not great statistical games. Like it was a
Yeah.
good but not great. But they're like, oh, because he did all the right things and it's not his fault the plays didn't work kind of thing. And it's like you guys are trying way too hard with this, but this isn't a PFF rant.
I could go on a long one with
I know
PFF.
we both could, but you
But
you
that also points out to me where QB ratings. I don't understand the whole QB rating thing because you look at
yeah,
Anthony Richards' last game, 9 for 19, 47.4 completion, 212 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, 2 sacks, but he had a 101.2 rating.
that one. Okay, so at least that one, I I don't know who made the formula, but I know it is purely like a this goes here, this goes there, and it spits out the number. The one that's really stupid is ESPN's QBR because it has some dumb. I know they'll say it's all statistics, but I think it's a subjective stats because of how they try to use it to weigh your performance in the key moments of the game kind of thing and
Yeah.
stuff. And so like Rogers would always be like a 60 something. And granted, I know we could nitpick how Rogers did in the key moments of certain important games, but when you look at it and then you have like freaking Bailey Zappies at like a 89 or something, you're like, okay, get over yourselves. But
Yeah, going back to this, Anthony Richardson obviously being. I'm not so worried about his arm because, yes, it's a cannon of an arm, but he is the prototypical that if you can get any kind of pressure on him, his accuracy goes out the window.
yeah, he's still figuring his footwork out. There's a lot of good stuff around Twitter. I think Brett Coleman has some good stuff. Nate Tice has some good breakdowns. Ben Fennell. Um, oh shucks, the Raiders athletic writer is escaping my brain right now. But they've all done good ones where it's like you can see the progress he's made. But and that's why I said this will be a fun game to watch Halfley's system because especially if he gets Edge a little more involved, if Quay is turned loose a little bit more on blitzes, they could simulate and send some zone pressures at him that might, you get that throw it to right into a defensive lineman's chest kind of thing, or like there's a wide open dig, but he shorts it by 5 yards and stuff. So that's the kind of action, and especially because, as I kind of have in the notes, the Colts have spent a bunch of decent draft picks on this line, but I still don't think outside of Quentin Nelson it's that good. And Nelson is starting to show his age a little bit. I know he had a rough year 2 years ago. I think he did kind of bounce back last year, but he's not quite the like gold standard guard he was like 3 to 4 years ago. And their left tackle is a guy in Bernard Raymond.
Which is weird. He's only 28.
Right. And it just goes to show how like as dominant as a like if you're as good of a player as Quentin Nelson is, you're but one man on a 5-man unit. And if the guys around you aren't that great, your overall play is going to be limited because you can only do so much and stuff. Or I think with Nelson, his problem 2 years ago, he tried to put too much on his plate and tried to overcompensate for the guys around him kind of thing. So,
and I really don't know what their starting line is. I mean, they've got a good mix of old and young throughout all their things, but
their two tackles like are two guys that were on Packers like draft wish lists for certain people,
Raymond.
and I never cared for either of them. Raymond is he's a he's
Old
Jason
prospect.
Spriggs. He's an old Jason Spriggs to me coming out of college. You always worry about guys who need to add functional strength in the pros. And then oh shucks.
They drafted Bortolini out of
Yeah.
Wisconsin and Tucker out of Marshall
Yeah.
for guard positions. So I mean, they've got a good mix. I mean, Ryan Kelly is probably most likely their starting center. Like I said, I don't know what their starting line is, and he's got 9 years in the league. So I mean, he's got experience.
Yeah.
So it'll be a good test.
It'll be a good chance for a bounce back for the outside, the edge guys.
Right.
And
with, like I said, with Edge Cooper looking pretty decent in his limited snaps, and Quay, they're both going to get opportunities to rush. And I would imagine at least one of them's going to be spying most of the game. So that'll give them opportunities. And you got to believe if they can get the pressure on Richardson, that's going to allow the defensive backs to feast.
And it's going to be another decent test for the secondary again because Pittman, Michael Pittman Jr. and Alec Pierce are two like height, weight, speed wide receivers. Adonai Mitchell adds the same kind of mix, and so you know we're gonna see how much. And I do agree with you. I think the field contributed a lot to the issues last week, and Devonta Smith and AJ Brown are just on another few more tiers ahead of these two guys. So it's a good pairing, but what the Packers face both in terms of their opponent and the field itself, this is going to be a night and day approach from them. So I'm expecting a much better performance from the
And it
secondary.
looks like all they got to do is shut down Pierce, and the whole offense goes to shit.
So, but I know Jonathan Taylor had an inefficient week, but can't let him get rolling this week because he's still a super talented running back, and you just can't give him any creases because he will take advantage of them. Anything else you're looking at that Colts offense that sticks out to you? But
I'm trying to look through, and no, I really don't see it.
Yeah.
Not really.
I think Jelani Woods would have been highlighted, but he's on IR. Their uber athletic tight end. He's just not been able to stay healthy in the pros. He's a guy I wanted a couple years ago. But yeah, I think
I don't even know what. Oh, they still got Ali Cox as a tight end.
He's just a oversized X receiver. That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's not really a tight end. He's just there.
They got some guys there, but really, like I said, it's shutting down the two main receive outlets for Richardson in Pierce and Pittman. I mean, it does look like he's tried to spread the ball around in his limited amount. He targeted Pierce 3 times, so Pierce got his chunk of yards out off just 3 catches. Pittman was targeted 8 times. Mitchell was targeted 5 times. And then he had 1 completion to Ashton Doolin. So I mean, like I said, I think if they can shut down Pierce and they shut down Pittman, which you would figure with the bounce back game from Jair, and I think Stokes had a pretty decent game last week.
My biggest complaint for Stokes last week was that missed tackle, and that's partly the field too. So, Yeah. So, like I said, we're going to find a lot more about this defense this week than we did last week. And honestly, just excited to see what that's going to look like. So, going from our defense against the Colts offense to our offense against the Colts defense. And it is, again, up front where the meat of this unit lies. This Colts defensive front has a pretty nice starting unit.
However, I'm going to cut in front of you because you don't have it in the notes. Buckner and Pay did not practice, so they were listed as DNPs. So I don't know how bad their injuries are, if they're just giving them rest, because it just says unspecified for game status, and it doesn't give anything for the injury.
Right.
So I don't know if it was just rest or what, but they were and Julian Blackman was a DNP also.
Yeah. And out of all of those, you'd only think what's it called? You'd only think that Buckner would kind of be he's okay. Here, I found their practice report. Blackman was a shoulder, Buckner was back, Pay is a hamstring, and then their kicker has that's not great for a kicker, hernia, and then Josh Downs an ankle. So that's their injury report. So that will be worth monitoring as well because two of those guys, Kwity Paye and DeForest Buckner, are at the forefront of what I was going to talk about with this defensive front. Buckner, Packers fans all remember him from his run with the 49ers. The Niners still have not properly replaced them on their defensive front.
That one will go down as one of the biggest head-scratching trades ever.
So, and all Buckner has done is continue to remain a force on the interior of the Colts defensive line. Special note, Buckner, DeForest and I went to the same high school, but he is quite a few years younger. And Kwity Paye Wolverine, and so
The
the two of them,
Michigan.
so the two of them combined for 2.5 sacks in week one. So that would be a lot of production going out the door if if either or both of them are not able to suit up, and would honestly be a boon because that takes this matchup from a tough matchup 2 weeks in a row for this offensive line to really facing a less than experienced unit. Because if just based on how the Colts have their depth chart, you go from Kudipe to their first round pick Laiatu Latu, who had a good, I think he had pressures on like 39% of his snaps, and he didn't play, though he didn't play that many. That's still an impressive number. And then our boy, one of my draft crushes from last year, Ade Adewawore from Northwestern, is the backup, listed as the backup to Buckner. At nose tackle, Grover Stewart is still a solid player, and then Taekwon Lewis is kind of a jag, but he plays up because the other guys on that line draw attention. So
And did they just sign Raekwon Davis this year?
I think so,
So
because
he's
I
a
think he was.
big nose with Washington, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Or was it Tennessee?
I think he might have been Tennessee for some reason. Maybe that's why you were thinking of Tennessee before the game. Oh
Yeah,
no,
he signed
Miami.
no, Miami. We were both wrong. But yeah, he signed this year on March 15th. So, and he's a big boy. I mean,
Yep.
6'7", 325. So, he's going to be a solid guy up the middle, stopping the run. But yeah, if Buckner and Pay both don't play, that's going to be a massive hit for him. And then you throw in the back end, if Blackman doesn't play, he would be a major loss in that secondary
Yeah.
also.
So we'll actually just jump there because not much to say about their linebackers. They've lost a lot the last couple years. But yeah, Julian Blackman and Kenny Moore are the two linchpins of that secondary. I believe each has an interception of Rodgers, or at least one of them does. I can't remember which one does from that game back in 2020, but they're both excellent cover men, and they just have a bunch of athletic younger guys at all the positions. But if Blackman's not back there, he's the guy that they use as that Swiss Army knife player in their secondary. He'll show up one place pre-snap, end up another post-snap. They use him deep, they use him in the box, use him in some man coverage on tight ends and backs, and he's just a really versatile, high IQ player. So losing him would be a blow, especially because look, they don't even have I know they have more than safeties, but they don't even have a guy listed after him. So I'm not sure who would double down to strong safety if he's not able to go on Sunday. So like I said, we'll keep an eye
They've
on it.
got Rodney Thomas, second, third year guy out of Yale. Trevor Denbow, third year guy out of SMU. Nick Cross, third year guy out of Maryland.
And he's the starter.
And then Blackman.
Yeah, Cross is the starter at free safety. So Cross is a solid guy. I remember him playing at Maryland. So, but yeah, it's going to be another match, and this is going to go back to that whole who is wide receiver one for the Packers.
And they've got Ronnie Harrison Jr. on their practice squad, so he might, if Blackman can't go, he probably gets a call up.
Yeah. So lots to keep an eye on, and especially if Blackman can't play, this is a game where Tucker was solid in week one. Musgrave's got to bounce back after just being a total no-show, including not doing nearly enough on that interception over the middle of the field. It wasn't, like we said, it wasn't a great decision by Love, but Musgrave, that's one of the things that we said he had to improve on from last year, is just being more physical at the catch point and doing something to, inherit a flag or to make a play on the ball. So needs to.
And if it's Willis starting, and they're missing Blackman, Buckner, and Pay, you got to think that helps him out tremendously.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would be an excellent advantage to have. And then, like I said, I don't know anything about these linebackers for the Colts. The two guys that I remember them having are escaping me.
EJ Speed was third in tackles for them against the Texans, so maybe
Yeah,
he's one
but
of
they
the starters.
had shoot, what was that All Pro guy that they had?
Darius Leonard.
Yeah, Darius Leonard, who just fell off the face of the earth and played for the Eagles last year. So they had him, and then they had another linebacker who I'm also just blanking on. But yeah, like they um they've just lost a lot at that position. So again, like I said, if the game plan is to utilize Willis's mobility, get a little bit of zone read in there and stuff,
I
especially.
said that kind of jokingly in another show's chat. I think it was on the Freezer podcast. But this is where you dig deep into the playbook. Jet sweeps, wildcat, triple option, whatever you got to do to get in
Yeah,
just to make plays.
yeah, because if you can score 24 points this week, I think you've got a good shot of winning this game. So, and especially because I do expect it's going to be a lot of ground and pound and like just control the clock, like shorten this game as much as you can. And the thing with it is LaFleur has this in the back pocket because he was Mariota's coach when they were both with the Titans. So he's got a bunch of this stuff in the back pocket, and we saw him run some of it with Jordan Love. So, and to a lesser extent, even with Rodgers, you saw some of the zone read pulls and stuff like that, mostly on like key fourth downs and 2-point conversion kind of plays and stuff. But you hope to
I
see
want to
more of
say,
that.
didn't they say Willis is a really good RPO
Yes.
quarterback?
Yeah, he's really good at making those reads. He really understands, and not just making the reads, but he's really good at what they call riding the play out, where you like leave the ball exposed to the running back as long as you can, and then you yank it at the last second to force commitments from the defenders and stuff. So, like you said, throw the kitchen sink out there. It's an uncommon opponent, and it's a race to 24 points this week. That's what I think it's gonna be. But and then it's kind of pointing in the mirror with the special teams. Rigoberto. Oh shucks, he has so many friggin' Rodrigo. Oh no, Rigoberto was the kicker. Oh no, Rigoberto is the punter.
Oh,
Sanchez.
Rigoberto. Okay, yeah.
Rodrigo was the kicker, the one that looks like Jimmy Christensen. That was our joke on our one chat. But Sanchez is a solid punter, but the Colts are breaking in their own rookie kicker, and their return game, I have no idea who their returners are. So
I got it here. Anthony Gould.
yeah. So
and he's a rookie.
yep. So and like I have in the notes here, Keyshawn, you're awesome, but you gotta know the game situation. You gotta know when you gotta just take a knee. I know on film review you're gonna say that you came close to breaking that one at the end of the game, but we needed the yards, we needed the time, so Sanchez got to be able to rein that in a little bit and stuff. So
this is when you wish they would start doing like the old or even like high school stuff where I go back to the movie Remember the Titans. You drop the football, you run a mile. You do this, you run a mile. That would be my practices. If you're getting paid millions of dollars to play this sport and you pull a boneheaded stunt like that, you're running a mile. If you're doing this, you're running a mile.
The only problem is I think Keyshawn's the kind of sicko that would just be like, cool, I'll do it. The goofy meme, and I'll do it again. But
I mean, that I think that's got to make its way back into coaching staff where you've got to do something to make it seem like, okay, well, it's just not a pass.
Yep.
We're not going to cut you, but if you do something like this,
you got to be
your
smarter about
mine.
it. Yeah, exactly. You got to be smarter about it. So, but hopefully it won't come down to that. Like I said, hopefully our defense will be able to confuse Richardson some and keep Stewart at bay, and we'll be able to get to 24 points first and stay ahead of it. But over-unders, Joe, what you got for us this week?
This one is a combined passing and rushing, since Willis is kind of a dual threat. So 1.5 touchdowns for Malik Willis.
I'm going over because he has to. If Green Bay is going to win, he has to.
I'm going to say I'm going to go under because I'm hoping that LaFleur will pull out all the stops and we'll get some jet sweeps and stuff like that, kind of like we did against the Eagles, where Reed is going to have maybe another rushing, or Christian Watson has a rushing, or somebody has a rushing on top of it. And it's not a touch pass, it's an actual jet sweep. So I'm going to go under in hopes that other facets of the game will step up to score the points
Could
and
be a
not
big
put all the
Jacobs game.
pressure.
Yeah.
Right, and not put all the pressure on Willis, being that he is short amount of time in this system. 2.5 sacks for the Packers defense.
I'm going to go. I'm going under, but not because they're not going to get pressure. I think that they're going to pressure Richardson into mistakes. That's why. So I've got them at 2 sacks.
I'm going to go for 3, so I'll take the over. I was so close last week with it that I had the same number out there. And I think it was just barely missed getting the third one on there. So I'm going to go over just because I have a feeling it's going to be the same type of thing, that he's going to get outside the pocket, or he's going to try doing something with,
Yeah. Or
So,
like the one Lucas almost had where he almost tracked Hurts down and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so
Something like
I
that.
think it's going to be something like that, where it's not going to be a straightforward sack where it's just some guy rushing up the middle and taking him out, or coming off the end. It's going to be some combination of the. So 63.5 yards for Jacobs, and we'll cut it down to rushing.
I'm going over. Again, like the touchdowns, because he has to.
I'm going to. I want to take the over also, but I have a feeling we're going to see a few more carries out of Emmanuel Wilson. And if Lloyd does play, you're obviously going to get some carries out of him. So unless the Packers go big time up, it's going to be hard to spread the ball around between the three of them too much. So I guess I'm going to take the under, but I'm going to go slightly under. Last one is half an interception for McKinley. So either he's going to get one, or he's going to get McKinney, not McKinley. He's either going to get one, or he's going to get
My grandma's high school, but no. I'm going under purely because I think someone else is going to get the interception this week.
I'm going to go over, so I'm going to say he does get the one, and I'm going to hate myself for making this prediction, but I really think this is going to happen just because of the strength of schedule that the Packers have right now. McKinney is going to get super hot the first few weeks of the season, and then it's going to kind of disappear because other people are going to start either stepping up, or they're going to
Start getting picked on. Yeah.
yeah. Or they're going to realize where McKinney's at, and they're going to avoid that side of the
exactly.
field.
That's what I mean by other people are getting picked on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm going to say he's going to get at least one. So I take the over on that. And like I said, I have a feeling he's going to be super hot for the first couple weeks of the season, and then it's just going to kind of tail off after that.
Yeah.
Not that he's going to be bad, just I think
Yeah.
are going to be
It's
in there.
he's the shiny new toy, and like you said, other teams might not find the rookies that fast. So yeah, totally agree with you there. Anything else for us tonight, Joe? Or are we going to keep this as short and sweet as we hope to?
I think we just keep it short and sweet because I still got to edit this and get it out for Thursday. So
sounds good. So that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us on another opponent preview of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Thank goodness we're gonna get out of here before my internet decides that it's not better than it was on Sunday. So we're gonna make a sauntering escape to stage left. But please check out the website ohanapackers.org. Posts are going up left and right. Our writers are doing good hard work out there. Streams of all of our shows, all of Cheese Talk's shows are on there. Check out our merch. Joe's got it. Check us out there. buy anything and everything that we've got. Please support the channel, support our writers, support us, but mostly the writers. Please follow the podcast Ohana underscore Packers on Twitter. Like we said, that is where the pregame spaces will be held from. We'll start to. I didn't get a chance to put a poll up because the whole turnaround for the Friday game and stuff. So just to get an idea, I'll throw out some polls for what you want us to go over in the pregame session. Like I said, those are going to be pretty short, 15, 30 minutes, just the little finishing touches before kickoff. And then whenever we do giveaways, you got to be following that account to be eligible. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. Positive and negative comments, please leave them. We want to know what you're thinking, and so that we can get you the content you're looking for. Packers look to get back to 500 this week, get back on the winning side of things, whether it be with Jordan Love and he makes a triumphant return, or if Malik Willis has to step into the spotlight for the Packers. LaFleur is looking to have his team ready to roll on Sunday for the home opener. That's Joe. I'm Mike. Go Pack, go, and aloha.